Welcome back to another episode of the group chat. And Phil, you've made your way back from Wet and Wild back into the starting 11. Welcome back. How you doing?
Yeah, Wet and Wild featuring Cyclone Alfred, I guess. Yeah, good to be back. A very exciting experience over in Queensland. Some beautiful Wellington-esque weather was experienced, so stoked about that. Plus 30 degrees and some humidity, so yeah.
Some 30-degree days. Good trip away.
Yeah, plane made it back, so that's what matters.
Well, yeah,
couple cancellations.
Yeah, some debacles getting
couple
to and
delays,
from Brisbane.
But whatever.
Well, we said earlier, picked a good time to go if you got some good weather, experienced a cyclone,
Yep.
and now you're back on deck.
Yeah.
Thankfully, you're back on deck.
Still an extra couple days too with the delays, so
yeah. And you've pushed Goran back to the bench. Goran was filling in for you while you were gone.
Damn.
It's back on the bench back in the starting 11. So
nice. Let's
kick things off with, did you manage to see much sport over the weekend over in Brisbane? Do you have a top three for the weekend?
Saw a lot of NRL while I was in the Sunshine Coast, and I do think I pretty much almost watched every single game, to be honest.
It's an impressive feat.
Nice. Hard not to when it's at very reasonable times in Australia to watch them, obviously.
Yeah, that's fair.
Highlights. Is that what you asked me? A
little top three of the weekend.
Certainly not the Warriors game. That was very depressing. I think that Bulldogs Dragons is probably the top of the top for me from the weekend, that 28-20.
Mm-hmm.
The rivalry, the atmosphere, we can get into that later if you want, but that was a peak game. The Broncos, I think we talked about it. I had the feeling they're going to have a big season with the new coach, and the players seem to be excelling. And then I think Melbourne Storm just running through a very leaky Eels team.
Yes, that Eels team is down in the dumps.
40 points at halftime. I was like, this is going to be a 70-point game. Luckily for the Eels, it wasn't, but abysmal performance. So some massive scores there. And then, of course, I think I just want to say Fiji and Drua in the rain at home.
Yep.
I mean, can't beat them.
Beating your Chiefs.
Indeed. I love watching games like that.
Yeah.
Despite the result. Just so good to watch.
Oh, even in the wet weather and the ball skills on display, and we'll talk about it, but some of those tries being scored are unbelievable in that game. All right, so very NRL and rugby focused for your top three, no doubt.
Yeah, no football was consumed.
Even worse times.
Man United's, it's even worse. It was like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
2 a.m. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good viewing.
Well, my top three, I'll kick it off, and unfortunately the Black Caps couldn't beat India in the ICC Champions Trophy, but Rachin Ravindra, ICC Champions Trophy Player of the Tournament, top in the runs with 2 centuries. So happy that a young star for the Black Caps for a long time, I'm going to imagine, is getting recognition on the world stage, being an ICC Player of the Tournament. Not many Kiwis have done that, and Rachin, he's scoring tons of fun in ICC events. He's got 5 to his name now, topping the New Zealand leaderboard for tons scored in ICC events, with Kane Williamson close behind at 4.
Wow.
But Rachin at 25, already at the top.
Got a decent career ahead of him too,
Another 10 years at least. And now I guarantee you he will be able to pick his price for the IPL. So he's earned himself a well-deserved payday come the IPL. The second one, another young Kiwi star doing well, Liam Lawson, obviously the F1 kicking off this weekend in Melbourne, but he was named GQ, so the magazine GQ, their cover star athlete of the month. So
really?
Yeah. I think they kind of like what he's all about, like his attitude, you know, last year pulling the finger as he drove past Perez. Like he's got a bit of something about him, a little bit of spice.
Bit more casual.
A little bit casual. He dresses like at the F1 event, the season unveiling. he was there at the dinner, and all the drivers, they're dressed up in their nice, Hugo suits.
To the nines.
Pretty proper. And Liam Lawson shows up in jeans.
Yeah.
But like he looks sharp.
Civvy,
but
yeah.
he's more of the casual street kind of.
He's a Kiwi bloke. Kiwi
exactly.
Fella.
So GQ've got him on the cover of the magazine, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
And then my last one, and we'll touch on it a little bit, but Champions Day up at Ellerslie. Obviously, you weren't there. You're living it up with Cyclone Alfred, but I was lucky enough to go. Mitch James and I were there getting some content on the day. But for me, it by far felt like the biggest day that I've been involved with. Yeah, at Ellerslie. It was hyped up. Champions Day, the biggest race day in New Zealand's racing history, all this sort of stuff. We've got the Kiwi running, $3.5 million Kiwi. And it definitely lived up to the hype. Like, the whole day was sick. The weather turned it on, apart from maybe a half an hour rain patch.
So it wasn't like the Ellerslie we experienced
wasn't
last
like
time.
Clark Millions, no, when it absolutely pissed down. But no, it was really cool. The punters, the crowd, it was full. Everyone was getting involved. I mean, one stage we had the big camera op with us, so we looked proper. And we were talking to this one guy. We're doing naming Kiwi champions in 60 seconds. He was getting fired up, and we had about 20 to 25 people crowd around us and behind the back of the camera, just like supporting this guy, shouting out champions to help him. I think he marked 20. He wanted to get to 20. Was his 60-second goal. It was such a good time, but like the crowd were just getting amongst it. The quality of races were unbelievable as well. We had 4 Group 1s, the Auckland Cup, which is a Group 2, and then the Kiwi, the first running of the Kiwi, which Damask Rose ran in strong for Te Akau, and I had some money on Damask Rose as well. So paying 7s to win, I was pretty stoked with that.
Very nice.
Return to Conquer, got up in the Group 1 as well for Te Akau. We had Alvensador and a head bobber, which was a great day for favourites. If you're betting favourites, great day for favourites in the big races. But overall, Champions Day, from my perspective, was a huge success.
Very nice.
It was sick. It was very cool.
Good. Sounds good.
And speaking of huge successes, I do have a big bet here for you, Phil. I don't know if you saw this come through, but it is on the football. I've got it here. So it's $100 in paying 96s into $9,000 on the football. So we had Barcelona to beat Benfica, Crystal Palace to beat Ipswich, Bayern Munich to beat Leverkusen, Liverpool to beat Southampton, Arsenal to beat PSV, Nottingham to qualify against Ipswich. That would have been in a cup game. Madrid to beat Atletico Madrid, Liverpool in again to beat PSG. That must be in the first game of Champions League. So currently losing. And then Chelsea to beat Leicester City. So a 9-leg football multi, $100 into $9,000. Thanks for coming.
Wow.
It seems so easy.
Listening to those results in hindsight, yes, but it never is at the time, is it?
No. But
there was no crazy...
No crazy odds. The biggest odds were Liverpool to beat PSG at $2.65, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's impressive stuff.
Indeed.
We're going to get some nice Champions League multis coming, I reckon.
Yeah.
And towards the back end of the Premier
Europa League
season.
as well. Yep.
Europa League, yeah, European. We'll call it European football for you United fans.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, nice little collection there for that punter.
Tasty.
Let's go to Super Rugby, and you've touched on it. The Drua beating the Chiefs, but it was upsets for Kiwi teams all round. The Kiwi teams struggled this round. The Brumbies will start there, led for 3 seconds in that game at Eden Park against the Blues.
Yep.
And they were the 3 seconds that mattered, nudging over a penalty in the 79th, 80th minute to beat the Blues 21-20. Yep. Did you manage to catch any of that game?
No, we watched the highlights for that one. I think we were back-to-back rugby league around that time.
You sound very rugby league heavy on that. I mean, if you're watching all the games, I'm surprised there's not a lot of time for anything else.
Yeah, it's too good. But I think we had, the Chiefs game next to us while we were watching another league match. But, 1-point thriller. Well, did watch the highlights, and good effort from the Brumbies.
Yeah.
I think there was some historical stat in there about beating the Blues at home. I don't think it's been done.
Yeah.
For I can't remember what the stat was. I'll bring it up later.
Okay.
But yeah, huge result for the Brumbies.
Yep.
Blues.
Yep.
Disappointing. Beauden Barrett's kicking. Disappointing. Especially for a starting All Black. Everyone has their off days though. But that was, it seemed like, without watching the game, sort of the deciding factor when you're missing, what was it, 4 kicks, 3 kicks?
Yeah, something like that. I think...
Not necessarily difficult conversions either in a tight game. You don't want to see that on the international stage.
The difference between the game this week and their game last week was Beauden started at 10, where the week prior he'd started at 15 with Harry Plummer at 10, and then made the switch at about the 60-minute mark to come from 15 to 10. So I think it made sense to start Beauden at 10 this week because he absolutely ran the cutter for that last 20 minutes in their game prior against the Hurricanes. But I don't know. Again, it raises questions about the All Blacks number 10 spot.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about conversions here specifically. I think in a season where the Blues are struggling, they need every point they can get.
Yeah.
And being that inconsistent isn't doing them any favours.
No. Let's go. Your Chiefs against the Drua.
Wow.
Over in Fiji. And
Indeed.
It was the wet and wild weather game we'd predicted. The weather going into that one did look shocking. And to be fair, it was. But the boys played some good rugby.
They did. I think the Chiefs were, $1.20 or something?
Something
If
like
I
that.
remember correct.
Big favourites. Drua 12.5-point underdogs at 1 point.
Fantastic. Amazing. Atmosphere, insane, as expected. Weather, insane. And a really good result for them. Some really good running rugby from the Fijians as well, despite the weather.
Yeah.
They just looked more confident. And we know what they're like at home, but, with the weather, you think, the handling, and it was really good.
Especially the brand of rugby they like to play. Because it's running, they'll run out of their 5-meter line or their try line. They'll try to run it from there. And in the wet weather, when it's hard to get your feet moving, hard to grip the ball properly.
Still looked very quick.
And then you've got Olme on the wing. What's his name? Logan Amasi. Catching it on halfway. Spin move, kick, chase, regather, try under the post. Thanks for coming, extending the lead to 28 points.
Yeah, crazy.
Genius.
Crazy ball skills in weather like that.
And then Moana Pacifica. Now, here's the stat for you. They haven't beaten a New Zealand team at all in the comp, I believe.
Well,
was the stat? Or maybe it's over 20 games. Haven't beaten a New Zealand team. And now
40
they have.
points.
And now
40
they have
points against the Hurricanes.
Adi Savia revenge game.
It's good to see. I mean, Moana Pacifica have been pretty consistent in terms of putting in big scores. I don't think they've scored fewer than 28 points or something. It's the second or third time they've scored 40 points, so they're definitely putting in big shifts. It's just been a little bit unlucky.
That's been a case of them being able to score the points, but not being able to stop them at the other end. So they're losing a 45-40 or a 38-33 game, high scoring affairs. But it seems like even with Ruben Love coming back into the Hurricanes, I reckon the Hurricanes missed a beat there. No Cam Roygaard starting. Karifi on the bench as well. We had some key players to that squad and an already young and sort of inexperienced squad. We had some key guys not start that game. So it almost feels like the Canes took that one too lightly away from home.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yes, they're Pacifica struggling for wins, but they're scoring a lot of points.
Yeah.
So to not put out a full strength team is an interesting one. Maybe felt a bit more secure than what they should have been. So
a Blues loss, a Chiefs loss, a Hurricanes loss, Highlanders on a bye.
Only the Crusaders.
Which pissed me off.
Yeah.
Because I had under 60.5 points in that game for my last leg of the multi. And they freaking score a try in the 79th minute to total it over 60.
Yeah. That's the worst performance from the Reds so far this season as well. They've been putting in big shifts. 56 against Moana Pacifica. And then a close win over, who was it?
The Force? Was it the Force?
I think it was. And the Force have been exceptional this year. So you would think They put in a good shift against the Crusaders, but Crusaders just dominated that one.
That also pissed me off, the Force, because they have been good.
Yeah.
And they were underdogs against the Waratahs.
Mm.
So I backed them.
Yeah.
And they get pumped.
Yeah. I backed them 7.5 as well.
Yeah.
And they get pumped. Yeah, it's just the game, I guess.
The Crusaders game down, the afternoon game on Sunday down in the Garden City. Cool concept though, like a 3:00 kickoff.
Very nice.
Sunday afternoon. Looks like they had a nice day down there.
Very nice.
Yeah, I like it. And the only other thing I had for Super Rugby, I guess it's New Zealand Rugby, but Ruben Love signing on with NZR till 2028. Thought that was kind of interesting.
I think it's good. Good for NZR.
Good for them. Now, I guess there's a question that kind of leads into this. We've seen, I said at the start, it's a tough time to be an Eels fan. Your 56-18 loss, rubbed in by the fact that Dylan Brown has told the club, see you later, I'm going to the Newcastle Knights for 10 years
contract.
at 13 point something million
Yeah,
dollars.
like 1.3 a year.
So we'll get to that in a second. But NZR, do they need to start locking in these guys for long-term contracts, like 10-year contracts, or they stick with the 2 4-year deals? It's like Ruben Love, I guess, sign him on for 3 years. If you want to keep him in New Zealand, he's 23, sign him on for 10 years, lock him in here till he's 33. I wonder if they'll start doing that and following in NRL's footsteps. You see it in the baseball, like American sports, these big, long contracts. I don't know.
It's a little bit different, though, isn't it? If you're talking about NZR signing a contract for a player as opposed to individual teams wanting to secure a player.
Yeah. I guess, like, with the NZR contracts, it just kind of locks them in for New Zealand Rugby.
It just seems like it's locking them in for selection for the All Blacks more than anything else. Rather than, say, the Hurricanes being like, oh, we get him for 10 years.
But I think, so if you sign an NZR contract, unless you do that sabbatical, you have to play Super Rugby in New Zealand. You have to play that franchise rugby here, so you can't go off to Japan or, call it a day.
Yeah, exactly. But why would you go to Japan? For money. And then what happens when you go to Japan? You can't be selected for the All Blacks.
Yeah.
Which is what I mean. It seems more so a selection that benefits All Blacks than anyone else.
So you're saying we won't see that happen?
You might. I just think it's a different scenario as opposed to the Knights paying $13 million for Dylan Brown,
which is a bit of a joke, I reckon.
It's insane. I think they got scammed big time, but we'll see.
I think fair play to the agent, and Dylan Brown, because that is huge,
crazy.
Signing it,
and he's going to be on a higher wage than Nathan Cleary as well.
Yeah, so I think. What is it? I heard it's either 4 out of the top 5 paid players in the NRL have not won a premiership, with Nathan Cleary being the only exception.
Yeah.
So it's like you pay these guys, and you don't have room to pay anyone else. Like you can't win a premiership with one guy.
Yeah.
Maybe Cleary is that exception, but you've got stars all around you, and they've just got a winning formula in Penrith. But is Dylan Brown worth? He's good. And you've got the argument that he's not ever going to play Origin. So you have to worry about that. He's going to be there through that. But is he a $13 million player?
I don't think he's worth more than Nathan Cleary, no. Nathan Cleary, 1.2 a year? Dylan Brown now 1.3.
We need that cricket sound.
Yeah, I don't know if he's the difference between the Knights winning a game or not. But they do need a solid half. So
they do,
and they have acquired a solid half. Bit expensive though.
And it depends. I guess what Kalen Pong is a tough one there as well, because are you going to pay him? Is he going to stick around, or is he then going to leave?
We'd be asking for more money now, I'm sure.
And that's the other thing, like contracts now. Obviously,
I think it ruins the Knights' contracts for the future when you pay someone that much. Everyone else is going to be expecting similar.
Out of that 10 years, obviously you've locked him in for 10 years. It's a long time until 2035 it's going to be. How many good years are you expecting out of Dylan Brown when he comes? Like you might have 3 great years, maybe 3 like good years, and then what? There might be a year with injuries, like he might miss out over half the season. There's going to be seasons within that 10 years where you're not getting the most out of your $1 million player.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels very weird.
Well, I guess we'll see eventually what happens.
What we need to do is get Adam Blair back on because he's with the Knights and see what he thinks about it. We can ask Adam. Let's go after
Probably,
watching.
Is he even allowed to comment on it? Who knows?
Well, we can try. We can only try. Round 1, done and dusted. Who's your early call for Wooden Spoon? Is it the Roosters? Is it the Eels? And why is it one of those two?
You're pretty close, actually. That round 1 was insane. Some of those scores: 50 points, Broncos 56 from the Storm, 42 from the Sea Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Warriors got hammered. Tigers, Knights, very close game.
Was
Rabbitohs, Dovil, very close game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you're on the money, I think. The 4 concerns for me after round 1 is the Warriors, Roosters, Cowboys, and Eels. Those 4 teams are in a bit of strife, I think. All their performances were absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
But some were worse than others, and the ones that was worse was the Eels after round 1.
Mm-hmm.
They're just leaking.
Yeah.
They were shocking.
They were
against the Storm.
The Storm were a very good. Are a very good side though.
Yes,
and they've not lost a round 1 game
in like 22, 23 games
since
now.
I've been alive.
Correct. But to leak 40 points, I don't think that is down to the Storm being very good as much as it was. The Broncos were exceptional against the Roosters. Adam Reynolds, exceptional. Guys like Jordan Ricky, exceptional.
Yeah, huge.
Reece Walsh played very well. Cobbo scored a hat-trick, whatever. The Melbourne Storm, they didn't have to do much to get into a lot of space. They had some full field interceptions.
Yeah.
It just felt like they could pass the ball a couple times and, there's a gap. Very nice. Yeah. Thank you very much.
It did feel like
they had more pace. They could, if there was a little hole, they just run through it, and the Eels can't tackle, apparently. So, I think that's a serious issue, as opposed to, the Roosters, they didn't have a great game, but the Broncos were on point.
Yeah.
I think the Storm were good, but not so much that the Eels were just terrible. 40 points before halftime, never a good sign. And I thought there's going to be a 70-point thriller on our hands here. But they sharpened up in the second half a little bit, as much as the Storm maybe took a pedal off, started resting their players. They were comfortable.
Imagine resting your players in week 1. Yeah. Because I didn't catch the start of that game, but I did turn it on without seeing the score.
They were scoring almost every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which you can't have.
And I joked about it. I was like, oh, fuck, it's going to be 50-0.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was going to be about halftime.
Yeah.
I look at the clock, 46-0. And I was like, I was low-key taking the piss saying it was 50-0, but I am very close. Tell you what, we got absolutely ruined in that Broncos-Roosters game.
Really?
There were so many same-game multis, try scorers. You see Cobbo with a hat trick, and people to score multiple tries. We got fleeced.
Wow.
In that. There were some big payouts from SGMs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big shift.
So well done to the punters in that game.
Yeah, tries left, right, and centre this week. My God. Even in that the Storm Eels game, I thought the Storm would win, but I was nowhere near as confident to have them even. I think their line was maybe.
It was up 12, I think it was
16.
Higher. Scoring and I was
not confident in that whatsoever.
No.
But it breezed past it. And I just feel like the Cowboys as well, terrible. But they were in a situation where it was human error and it was unforced errors.
Yeah.
Their attack was terrible because of it. They were passing balls over each other. They were kicking it dead every single time.
Yeah.
I think those are things
mistakes
that can be fixed.
Yeah.
They still were putting in an effort. They were just overcorrecting themselves. Whereas the Eels just didn't even look like a team. They just looked like a bunch of individuals running around trying to make tackles.
So Mitch Moses is out for 6 weeks. If the Eels aren't 0-6 by the time he comes back, I'll be surprised. I don't know what their schedule looks like, but if they can win 1 or 2 games without Mitch Moses there, I think that'd be a happy camp.
Yeah.
And Mitch Moses, we just said you can't win a premiership with one player, but he will make an impact in that team, as in actually directing traffic on attack. They managed to score, what was it, 18 points?
Yeah.
If they can sort out their defense a little bit within this first couple rounds,
bit more cohesion for sure.
Maybe they're there, but I don't know. It'd be an early bet for the Eels. Wooden spoon.
Warriors as well. They need to sharpen up big time.
They need to be less. What's the word?
Lethargic on attack.
Yes.
They need to learn how to offload.
Yes.
They need to have some attacking play. They need someone to. It looks like half a team at the moment. We're lacking someone to direct the team. A bit like the Eels, I guess.
Yeah. We need Tamari Martin.
Doesn't feel like we have a full squad at the moment for some reason. There's some combinations not working there.
I'd love Tamari
And the Raiders
Martin.
also had a really good game. But
and I mean, I think we saw some of the Warriors guys at the races, and they just said, like, look, we take a lot from that. It was round one. The lights were too bright. Like, they all had to play in the same conditions, but it was just almost all too much for little old Lando Norris. Okay, so any more news out of the NRL? Obviously, we'll do a bit of a weekend preview later on in the week.
I just think, Dragons Bulldogs game blows it out the water.
Was your top?
Felt like a derby. Atmosphere incredible. Fans incredible. They were throwing pies at each other and stuff in the crowd. That's how tense it was. From the first hit up in that game, you're like, oh, this means more than 2 points for these teams, which is what you want to see.
And that's also when you're like, yep, we are back. NRL is back and we are cooking. Let's go. So, A-League, I mean, we're coming down to the point of the season. Auckland FC have already secured a home knockout finals game. So that's all cool. Still in the comp. Man United, Arsenal, 1-1 draw. Probably a fair result.
Yep.
I'd say at Old Trafford, Arsenal without a striker. I've given up on the season already. We had to be perfect from the last 12 games. We've got a game in hand, 15 points behind Liverpool.
Yeah.
Take a draw.
GG.
Just get the job done in the Champions League now.
I'm stoked with that draw, by the way.
As you should be.
You're probably absolutely gut-wrenched. I'm so stoked with that.
And then what else? We got UFC 313. Did you catch any UFC?
I did watch that.
Nice. Yeah. What did you make of? We'll just go straight to that title fight. What did you make of it? Lots of people saying Alex robbed. I don't think so.
Hell no, he was terrible. It reminded me a lot of the fight between Strickland and Adesanya. Alex Pereira looked so off the mark, so off the ball. All he was doing was leg kicks. Some, his leg kicks are great.
Some good leg kicks.
That's all that he had to offer. And Kalaev was just dominating the octagon, pushed him up against the cage, was throwing combinations.
Yeah.
He just ignored the leg kicks completely almost.
Tough to do as well.
And hard for Pereira to read what he was going to do. Obviously, he was going in for takedowns and stuff as well. Was unsuccessful for the most part, but just dominated the octagon. And Pereira couldn't find a way in, really, it seemed. Not a great performance by him. I was saying, like, when he walked in, he looked a little bit... he was still locked in.
Where he has that stare that he just does not look away from his opponent during the whole call-outs and everything. Yeah. So he's doing that.
But he didn't really look as chiseled as what he normally looks coming in. I'm not saying he's fat by any means. But yeah, and Kalaev deserves it, I think. I think it would have been a robbery if he didn't get the bell. And I thought there was a chance of that happening. Just for the case of selling PPVs. They're going to keep Pereira here, but judges, luckily not.
There were a lot of articles coming out ahead of the fight being like, this is going to be Alex's toughest fight matchup-wise, but...
I think it is overall, for sure.
But was the stardom that Alex brings to the UFC, the elite superstar that he is that going to be enough in his camp and a tight one to sway it his way? Obviously, it wasn't because... I think as soon as you hear that scorecard, before they announced the winner, you knew it's an Ankalaev win.
Yep.
Like, what was it? 49-46, 48-47, 48-47, unanimous decision.
Yeah.
I don't know. The judge that scored it 4 rounds to 1, I guess scored, round 1 to Alex and then the final 4 to Ankalaev. But I feel like 3-2 sounds...
Because he did... Yeah. When did Ankalaev... No, he knocked him down round 2, didn't he?
Yeah, so Ankalaev definitely had round 2 and 4 in my books. And then Alex, I think, had 1 and 5, and 3 was pretty 50-50. I guess it goes to that control time.
It's just control.
Had.
Yeah.
Did land some good shots, though. Like
he did.
He deserves it as well.
Yeah, he did. And he was just landing more combos and significant strike difference and all that sort of business.
And then how about Justin Gaethje? Wee. He's what was the number? 9 fight of the night bonuses and 9 fights? Like,
considering Fiziev came in on 12 days notice.
Yep.
Legend. And they put on a spectacle again.
Great fight.
As they often do. Yeah, fantastic fight. Good to see Gaethje back on top. But Mauricio Rufy,
yes,
that spinning back heel to the temple was the highlight of the night for me. I think that was the last prelim fight. So clean. And I think the Fighting Nerds, which is that Brazilian camp, they come away with like an 18-0 record at the moment. So all of them doing exceptionally well. And when you're getting finishes like that, wow. Yeah, one of the better finishes I've seen in recent times. So clean.
I think I had a good day punting-wise on the UFC. I had to do the tips because you were enjoying Cyclone Alfred. So I did the tip sheet for UFC 313. Tried to keep it pretty simple, not go too far out there. The only one I got wrong was I did back Alex just to win head-to-head because $1.87. You probably not get those head-to-head odds very often.
No.
So I just backed him. Other than that, I had to win by knockout, to win head-to-head. Some underdogs, Gaethje, I tipped him. So I was pretty happy with my UFC
Very
day.
nice. It's exceptional stuff.
And there was talks of a Max Holloway, Gaethje 3. And Justin came out and said, no, I don't think either of our family or friends deserve that. So I think that's being buried there.
Yeah. It seems like him and Viziev want to train together as well, which is cool.
Yeah, that was
each
cool.
Other twice, gone to decision twice. They're both very competent in their skill sets. And
that was cool.
Gutted to not see, I was saying to my brother, like, imagine if we're watching Dan Hooker fight right now.
Yeah. He'll be on the next one. We got Navajo over in UFC in Canada, Montreal. Carlos Olberg, he's going to be in the fighting again soon.
Exciting.
Got some New Zealand talent to watch. Okay, we'll finish it off with the group chat question. Nice and simple for you. NRL versus Super Rugby. 4 weeks in the book for Super Rugby. 4 very good weeks of Super Rugby.
Yep, definitely. 1
exceptional week of round 1 NRL. What's been better so far? What's been the better product?
Oh, jeepers. I think Super Rugby benefits from how competitive it's been this year. Really, really interesting games. And the preference of we were watching a lot of rugby union games over the preseason games. And I am definitely enjoying the season. However, I do think NRL as probably an experience or a spectacle is probably still better.
Still takes the cake?
Yeah, and I think, the viewing experience, the pace of the game, the atmosphere of the crowds.
Yeah.
I still think it's just a bit bigger.
I think when you compare the two, I think the experience for Super Rugby is still a better experience on TV. Rather than going to the games, which is kind of an average experience. And you've seen it in the crowds in Super Rugby. We're getting such good rugby.
Getting good numbers there too as well.
But they're just not the and it's different gravy for the NRL in terms of crowds in Australia. But I'd say the NRL still takes the cake as well.
Super Rugby's definitely beating Super Rugby from last year and probably the 3 or 4 years before that as well.
It almost feels like Super 14 days again, Super 15.
Yeah, and
that sort of competitive competition again.
It's competitive and it's exciting.
And I'm loving fantasy.
Plenty of high scores as well, much like the NRL. But
I'm loving NRL fantasy as well because I'm up in week 1. The draft. Come on.
So the draft just feels different too, doesn't it? It's just a different energy about NRL, I think, overall. And I think the fans feel that too.
Yeah. So we'll call it at NRL takes the cake after 1 exceptional round.
And saying that though, if you were to say, would you rather watch Raiders versus the Warriors again in round 1, or would you rather watch
Drua versus Chiefs?
Drua v Chiefs in the rain? I'm going to say Drua v Chiefs in the rain every single time.
Yep, I agree.
Way better spectacle.
It's a fair statement.
Overall, NRL it just
but
feels
then,
a bit more.
Would you rather watch that Dragons game again,
Dragons Bulldogs.
Dragons Bulldogs, or the draw Chiefs?
Yeah, I think that's like saying,
because you're taking the worst game of the round to probably the best game of Super Rugby round.
I wouldn't say it's worst game from a fan perspective, maybe.
Well,
I
as
think
a
it's
Warriors
the worst
fan.
spectacle game to watch. But I think, wait, what game did you say?
The Dragons Bulldogs.
Yeah, because as I said, that feels like
Yeah.
a derby. The crowd was just insane. Pies were getting thrown around.
Yeah.
There were big hit ups from the get go.
Yeah.
And it felt like the players felt that it wasn't just a game to win. It was like, this is more than 2 points. This is, I hate this team, and we want to absolutely thump each other.
So
and it's just a complete different experience to a normal match.
You'd rather
than you
watch
just
the
want
best
points.
NRL game of the round over the best Super Rugby game of the round. Is that what we're putting this down to? As how we get to answers?
I think so.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. We will finish it there. We will be back later in the week with a preview of this weekend's sport. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you then.